Nice cup of coffee there.
It's actually a good one today. They did it right. I don't know where.
How often do they do it wrong? Because I feel like you investigate the color of the cream that they put in. Like if it's not a certain brown, you're out.
It needs to be dark. I have really not mastered the art of pouring whatever I'm putting into my coffee because I don't do any sugar. I just use whatever kind of creamer.
Yep.
I think I might be okay with just a little splash of almond milk or milk. Like some of these creams get a little crazy, but I can't master the art of the splash.
I can help you with that.
But neither can like Starbucks or anywhere. A splash and it looks like I'm drinking chocolate milk.
When you measure it, you measure the ounces or the milligrams or the grams, whatever. You can find out exactly, and then moving forward, you can always.
That is true.
So
that is true.
It is. All right, hey, it's TexAgs.
David, I feel like you'd be a good
barista,
football ops guy, like a recruiting coordinator, a portal manager, if you will.
Let's do that. I don't know. I like this job actually.
TexAgs should start a game, here's Dalton over here hovering. It's like Dalton, like the college football game, EA Sports. Maybe TexAgs should do a dynasty mode see which TexAgs subscriber can create the best college football team. And that person could win a prize.
A coffee from Billy. All right, on the show, we did the college football playoff rankings with OB there in the Go Hour. We had
this mug is actually from Half Row, and it's like I don't know if it's like hey, I'm going to buy you this mug and torment you for all eternity on Twitter, but it's a good mug.
A nice quality mug.
Come and take it. It's a Buc-ee's if you want it. If anybody wants it,
I like that. I'm
Buc-ee's.
a big coffee
We support
mug guy.
Aggie-owned and operated businesses here in Aggieland. Apparently, so do the Longhorns.
Tom Hart, by the way, on the show, always on a Monday. Buzz Williams called in. We talked about the unfortunate game against Boise State, and this guy, the latest.
I missed Buzz today.
You did. You'll get him next week.
He's going to give me a hard time next week. I missed it. I had a Trojan virus attack my computer this morning. I had you and Olin, and it raised the volume of you two schlemiels in the background. I hope that's not bad, but we're not on air. Yeah. And then it raised the volume of you two schlemiels. And then in the background, I had this thing going, do not turn off your computer. And I couldn't get any of it to turn off.
Obviously not a Mac.
I called Josh and Brandon, and they're like, I don't know. And then, so that was all going on. So it made me late for Buzz. Unfortunately, I've entrusted Brandon to work on it, so we'll see. It means maybe in the next 7 months from now, I'll get an answer.
It's TexAgs Rewind. I do have a topic for us to discuss. I don't do a lot of topics, but should the college football playoffs be the 4 best teams or the 4 most deserving? This is a topic because your good friend Nick Saban made a comment. I was actually already going to ask this before you brought the comment to me, but basically he's saying none of those teams can beat us.
Well, of course he's going to say that, right?
Yeah, he has to.
This is not a vintage Alabama team by any means.
Yep.
They're good. They're not great. If I was going to compare resumes he's upset about obviously TCU getting picked over them. If I was going to compare resumes, quite frankly, I'd say TCU has a better resume.
Yep.
It starts with the fact that TCU has 1 loss and Alabama has 2.
And they lost to a team that
10-win team that they beat.
That knows how to win.
And you could say, well, Kansas State isn't that good. So, okay. How good is LSU really? They're good.
And they lost to LSU.
And Alabama lost to them. That's what I'm saying. So he's saying TCU, well, look who TCU lost to. I'm saying, well, you lost to LSU and they basically have the same record. I mean, they have 1 more loss than Kansas State. But how good is LSU? And quite frankly, if you're Alabama, you haven't beaten a team with more than 8 wins. You both played Texas, and as Alabama against Texas, you benefited from a very fortunate call that took away a safety that almost that most people without a dog in the fight would have said was a bad call. And you benefited from that and won on the last play field goal, right?
Yep.
TCU, I thought, had a pretty impressive victory over Texas. In fact, the only reason, they had a late turnover that Texas returned for a touchdown.
To make it
if not
interesting.
for that,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been interesting. So, I think that's one of those things where, take your L and move on. Now you're acting like, well, I'm Nick Saban. I'm supposed to get preferential treatment. And that's why I say always go with the resume and not who you think is the best team.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. What about Prime to Colorado? I say props to Dion for getting that gig.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the management of that job, of that role, plays out. One thing that Dion did a great job of, and kind of obviously set the parameters, is when he got to Jackson State, he said there are going to be certain things that I need, and if you can't provide them, I'm going to make it happen. And that was great for Jackson State, and they're going to be living off of those dividends for years to come. That program is going to be in a much better shape how he left it versus how he found it. The Colorado AD already came out and said, kind of jokingly, I don't have the money to pay him yet, but we will. I mean, the finances got to be a concern when you go in there and he's got designer tastes and designer expectations. Where is that money going to come from? I'll be honest, I was turned off by the way, if you take his words verbatim, and I don't know how else to interpret them, but when he met with the team with cameras rolling and a very public presentation, this wasn't one by one or closed door, and he met with the team that was there and said, go to the transfer portal. I'm bringing in players. That really turned me off, and maybe it should turn me off to the process as a whole, but to me that's a much different exchange if it happens one-on-one, behind closed doors, or even in a team meeting where there are no cameras present. But to stand up there with multiple cameras rolling and saying, I'm bringing talent in, y'all should go in the portal right now because things are changing, that was an ugly representation of where college sports are right now.
100% agree with you. Tom Hart with us here on TexAgs Radio. So I forget what it was. Was it last night? I saw a tweet from Brett McMurphy, and I'm like, this is a troll. It's like a fake Brett McMurphy. There's no way this is real. Turned out to be his account. Did you see the tweet about North Texas wants Saban, Kirby, Dykes, Harbaugh, Riley? That's their wish list of their head coach? Yeah, so's mine.
Yeah, great. They don't even have an AD. Their AD just left to go to West Virginia, and then they fire the guy now. Like, something's really odd about that situation, and I don't know who's pulling the strings or sharing influence or has the wrong idea of where they stand in the college football world. But listen, Liberty is going to outbid it. Liberty's paying their new coach, Jamie Chadwell, $4 million, right? The number one thing is to have influence, you have to have money. So if they've got that kind of money up there, good for them. Let's see what they can do and who they can convince. Maybe they can turn into the Live Tour and say, consequences be damned. We'll pay you a ton of money to come here, even though it may not be the best career move for longevity. But I think coaches want more than money. They want the opportunity to win, and that's what everybody has to balance.
Tom, I want you to give me your thoughts on LSU, but I'll set it up this way. Obviously, they're in a much better position than anybody thought they would be when the season started, maybe even midway through the season. Yet they reached such a high level that these last couple of weeks and potentially what the bowl game could look like kind of changes the way you look at them, or does it not?
Well, it's interesting, right? If you draw out the timeline, when Brian Kelly was hired and they had a skeleton crew in the bowl game because a lot of players were loyal to Orgeron and they were upset by the process, and there was a lot of internal politics and internal strife going on with that program. going into their January 3rd bowl game last year. So if you were to tell me that this is where they were going into next season, I would say, wow, he's ahead of schedule. I think the one concern there is that and you could say this about a lot of places, by being successful more so than they should have been this year, they kind of got the expectations out of whack. But that's how they always are in the SEC, and specifically LSU. I mean, as we all know, the last 3 head coaches there have won a national title. So that's why he was brought in. That's why he left Notre Dame when they were on the precipice of a possible playoff berth last year, and he still bailed on them before the rankings were announced. That's why he wanted the challenge of beating Saban head-to-head and getting talent there. They were going to get to this spot eventually under Kelly. I just think they reached it a little bit sooner than even the most loyal LSU fans and Kelly supporters would admit.
Yeah, the good thing about the schedule we're playing is we have to be held accountable relative to what we're doing good and relative to what we're doing bad and learn from it. We did not finish at the rim offensively. We got to the rim 50% of the time, but we finished at a very low rate. That would be one of the problems offensively. Defensively, we foul way too much, and there's a laundry list of reasons why not to foul. But thus far in our 8 games, we're giving our opponents 28% of their points from the free throw line. That's the 6th worst in the country. And so we've begun to try to diagnose. It's been a priority, and we haven't made much correction in regards to the fouls. But they shot 36 free throws on Saturday. Some of those at the end we were fouling on purpose. But we're fouling and getting the opponent to the bonus way too quick. Some of that is from our ball screen coverage. Some of that is the rotation on the weak side. That would be priority number 2. And then the second priority defensively, we have to finish the possession with a rebound more often. We're giving opponents too many possessions on the offensive glass. And so there's a myriad of reasons on that as well when you're not doing a good job on the glass, but we're staying in rotation too much. Some of that comes from our ball screen coverage as well. And then some of that comes from we're not guarding the ball well enough, so it puts us in rotation. And so those will be the things that we have been aware of, that we've made some strides in, like against SMU, against DePaul. We finished at the rim at a really good clip. We didn't foul quite as much, but against Boise State, those were the things that were backbreakers for us.
Everybody's checking the flight aware stuff. One thing people need to understand is nowadays, ever since, COVID and stuff, the Zoom stuff has become so much easier, and it keeps you from getting caught in these situations. So when there's a flight coming from, Duke, from North Carolina, but it's actually Duke's recruiting staff coming in, and there's all these flights from DFW. Well, the plane that people were checking out, it's the plane that A&M uses to go recruit. It's one of the planes they go recruit. The coaching staff was on the road this weekend recruiting. They're returning. They were getting back in time for the banquet. Mm-hmm. So DFW, as you guys know, and there's a lot of people coming in from Fort Worth and Dallas to College Station every day. So I think that's getting way overplayed. Like I said, I know for a fact there's multiple OCs still in play and being talked to today. There are names that people have said that I don't believe are candidates at all. I think Kendall Briles. I did say that Kendall Briles was reported on like a Longhorn site as being a candidate. He's not. I think Phil Longo is a legit candidate. I don't know if he'll be the guy that gets tabbed, but he's a candidate. I haven't heard much at all on the Jeff Grimes front.
Okay.
And that's a name that comes along a lot. It's a guy I really like. I would like to see A&M pursue. I think he's a lot better, and the Baylor fans don't appreciate what they've got up there. I think Dan Mullen and Phil Longo are two that I would say
Are in play.
watch. I would watch. Yeah, those two were certainly in play.
Riley?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
I believe so. That's the one. I'm not positive on, but I'm fairly certain that he's being targeted. And now, again, this is a thing where Jimbo's got to sit down, or Zoom or whatever, and talk to these guys and see what the fit is. The guy I said a long time ago that people rolled their eyes or were shocked, and there's a couple guys that I still keep an eye on that are Bobby Petrino, which would be my longest of long shots. But there's a connection there with Jimbo. He's there at Missouri State. I don't know how much he makes there as a head coach. There's not many people in this sport that call plays that can call a game better than Bobby Petrino.
Yeah, right about that.
It would seem like just a circus you're asking for. And but
sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of points. And then another one, and this is a more outside the box one too. This name was floated to me, but I didn't feel. Philip Montgomery, former Tulsa head coach, who's from that Briles tree. He had some prolific offenses at Baylor, then went to Tulsa. He was U of H, Baylor, Tulsa. That would be a name. You just as a head coach that just got let go, that has had again some pretty prolific offenses. But the guys I've got a close eye on are probably Mullen, Longo, and Riley.
Again, unfortunately, we live in a world where you have to address planes. I don't know if you have to, but
we don't have to.
No, I know, but it becomes a talking point, right? Because Twitter becomes its own little universe in its own world. On Twitter this morning, I'm seeing that South Carolina's close with Mullen, and nobody. So there's so many different things out there.
Well, and Longo and Auburn have been tied together. So the other thing, the couple things I've been told is that Jimbo is point blank telling the people he's interviewing, like, you're calling plays. It's your offense. You're going to call the plays. I'm going to be in staff meetings, but you're calling plays. That's significant. That's very significant. And that, to me, I've said a million times, that opens up a whole new world for you in terms of who you can hire. That, and is this new hire going to have say on his offensive staff? That's going to be a hot topic, too. Because if Jimbo says, well, no, we got all these guys, you're going to have a lot of guys just mentally kind of shut down at that point and go, oh, I'm not doing that. If he's saying, yeah, when you get here, we can visit all of it, nothing's off the table. Or, hey, is there somebody specifically that you want? Well, yeah, I need David Nuno to come with me. Okay, yeah, we can do that. Okay, and those are the tough conversations, and those also become the conversations that either get a guy in the door and working here or get him to kind of pull his name out along the way.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Mullen and South Carolina have been connected. Longo and Auburn have been connected. Garrett Riley's got a whole playoff thing to deal with right now. Jimbo, so that was one thing that I said. The other thing that I've heard about this search is that Jimbo has gone out of his comfort zone, so to speak, in terms of who they were looking at and who the candidates were. And that's saying something. Because you know what I've said always is, like, if this is Jimbo's offense and people want to call it pro-style, conservative, I don't think it's conservative. I think it's plotting at times. I don't think, like, the way – I do think the motion and pre-snap stuff is conservative and slow, but plotting would be a word I'd use for just the tempo of it all. But the plays when it's going can look really good. You saw it, but it's just too few and far between. And I think it's complicated. There's too much thinking, not enough doing. There's him there, and then over here would be like, let's call it air raid. Like 3rd and 1, we're throwing it. Mike Leach, air raid. Except when they play A&M, when they decide to run the ball the whole game. And I thought that Jimbo would come, he was capable of coming close to the middle here. But I think from some of the candidates, and a couple of them that I'm not going to say on here because they will send, the names have never been mentioned. And they're trying to get a job, get a guy hired. But I think Jimbo's come past this in a couple of those candidates. Not air raid, but he's gone further
Deeper.
out of his comfort zone, which I find very interesting.
Yeah. All right, it's time to end the show. Like, comment, what else?
Hit the button.
You just
Sign
take a
up.
shot of whiskey? What happened?
Oh my God, I don't know what the end of this coffee. It got cold all of a sudden.
Oh,
It went from hot one sip to cold the next. I guess they didn't stir it enough.
ugh. Shaking that stir.
One of my favorite movie scenes, by the way, is when Mugatu drinks that. The guy brings him the coffee, he drinks it, and just spews it all over the guy.
Mugatu?
Dalton, he's never seen Zoolander.
Oh, I've seen Zoolander. Yeah,
Okay,
I love
Mugatu
Zoolander.
is Will Ferrell's
and I-
character.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great movie.
Okay, good.
Had to watch Zoolander. It was
Okay,
a classic.
thank God.
Yeah. That's like. Well,
Then, what's with the binder?
oh, I'm glad you showed up to 2022. I've had it for the entire season. I put all my live reads on here. And I like it laminated, easy to get.
Nerd alert!
Yeah.
Whoa!
Efficient.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. You haven't noticed this?
No. Never seen that.
Yeah.
Subscribe. Sign up. Hit the
Nerd
like
alert.
button. What's the other one?
Sign up for alerts.
Tell
comment.
people about it. Comment.
All right. See you guys.